Hey everybody, this is David here, aka Chessman, and I'm back to continue the series where basically we're going into the jungle of the chess openings and trying to cover everything. Now it's probably going to take about a few thousand videos to do this, but I'm trying. So I'm going to try to take it slow. Last time we covered a brief cover of the King's Pawn opening. The time before that, we went over all the first moves in chess. If you haven't seen those videos, here's a chance to take some notes. You can pause the video and write these down, make them into flashcards, write them in your notebook, whatever you like. Basically, I have the moves in the order of how well they rated in for the engine. The engine said that e4 was the best, followed by d4. It actually said those two were tied at 0.36 advantage. And I have the names of the opening right to the right of it. E4 is called the King's Pawn opening, D4 is called the Queen's Pawn opening, Knight f3 is called the Rady opening, so on and so forth. You can pause the video and look at these and write them down. Basically, just about going by what the rating, just about all the openings are playable. Definitely all the way down to H4, where it's just negative 0.39. That's hardly anything. It means black has a slight advantage, but it's really nothing. If you know the opening better than your opponent, you're going to have the edge, or at least have probably a time advantage. Um, so, but I've played the computer against itself, the engine against the strongest chess bot on chess.com, and it won with G4, and G4 is negative 1.20, and it won with that. So even G4 might be playable. But for sure, I'd say H4 at negative 0.39 and up are all playable. But if you want the absolute best, you want to stick with E4 or D4. But if you want the advantage of surprise on your side, then go further down the list. E3 has, and if let's see, if you go to this website 365chess.com, or chess.com has a chess database which shows you the popularity of every move. And the point is, like, for instance, E3 is given a plus 0.23, and it's ranked fourth from the computer engine standards, but under popularity, E3 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is the 10th most played move. And it's only been played in 2,700 games. So you would get the surprise factor. The problem is, if you do E4 or D4, the good thing is there's plenty of theory. There's a lot of theory on Wikipedia and on this website as well, 365chess.com, about the openings. But if you pick something like E3, there's hardly anything. So E3, it's going to take more work on your part. You're going to have to use the chess engine and manually type in moves to see how good they are and write them down. And there's a lot of moves to do. So basically, you need to do as many moves that you feel comfortable with, where all of a sudden you're out of the opening and you have a feel of what to do in the position. So that's the trick. I'm going to try to cover every opening individually. I'm gonna go over them in a general aspect, but then I'm also gonna cover them individually as well. I plan to do all of them. I'm probably gonna stick with E4 and D4 first, because I want to cover all the main theory and any extra things that I come across that aren't covered in main theory. I want to cover, because those are the most popular openings, and they're most likely what you're gonna see in games. So that's what's gonna help you the most. But you can totally choose to do this yourself and choose, for instance, E3, and start preparing an opening for yourself. You can do exactly what I'm doing. So what I'm doing is I'm using 365chess.com, I'm using chess.com's analysis, and I'm using a WordPad. This is Notepad, and I just like the way the words are when you type them out. So that's what I use. I use Notepad. So last video we were covering we covered E4 King's Pawn opening, And I'll just in case you didn't catch that video, here's another chance to pause the video and write all these down. Or, yeah, you can write all these down. So, or unless you want to just write the best ones down. My advice is if you don't want to write all of them down, I would say I'd go as far as the Owens defense. These ones below it are kind of dubious, but they could still be a surprise weapon. We're going to find out as we get to them. But if you don't want to write them all down, if you want to stick to the best, then I would say the Perk defense and up, minus the Nimzovich defense. The Nimzovich defense is kind of sort of a surprise because it's right up there with the best, but it's hardly ever played. So let me go to E4 on this website. So Nimzovich is one knight c6. It's rated fourth according to the engine, but on the move popularity, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's the ninth move, and it's only been played 12,451 times. So you could definitely get the surprise factor, and according to the engine, it's a fine move. So I don't know why it's not played more. I really don't know why. Maybe as we start playing it, we'll find out why. Maybe it's just very inferior, but it's supposedly a little bit better than the Caro-Kann and the Perk, and those are two totally fine openings. So, okay, that's E4. Today we're going to look at D4. So 1d4, let me go to it. So 1d4 got a plus 0.36. It was tied for first. So it's tied with e4. So it's just as playable according to the engine as e4. And here's a list of all the first moves. And I started it with, what I did was I put in all the first moves, all the replies to d4, which there were 20 of them. And then depending on what the rating is, I put them in order of the best move. So the move that gives the least advantage to white, because we're playing the black move, knight f6. Knight f6 gives white the least amount of an advantage. So it gives white plus 0.33 advantage. d5 gave plus 0.36. So d5 gives white a slightly more advantage than knight f6. And it keeps going up the further you go down. So I'd probably say, like, without going in depth into these openings, I'd say you can write all these down. But if you don't want to write all of them down and you just want to write down the playable ones, like if your opponent doesn't know the opening, they may all be playable. But if your opponent knows the opening or is pretty good at openings, even if they don't know it, then you might not want to go further than knight c6, the Mykonese defense. But I'm gonna let you know of another resource which I alluded to in my last video, Wikipedia. Wikipedia, if you type in Queen's Pawn Game, it has a whole bunch of information about it, and it's really good. Like, I'm going to cover some of this in other videos. Like, I want to cover, like, for instance, when I do a video about knight f6, I'm going to cover all the moves, and then I'm going to cover all the main openings that come from the moves. And like, if you come to Wikipedia, which I recommend, and read just about everything, it gives you a lot of information. Like, for instance, it tells you, okay, if you read this, it says The queen's pawn game is usually used to describe openings beginning with 1d4 where white does not play the queen's gambit. Now, you can hover over the queen's gambit and it tells you what moves they are, so you know what the queen's gambit is. And then it says the most common queen's pawn game openings, which are openings that aren't the queen's gambit, are the London system, the Trumpowski attack, the Tor attack, Stonewall attack, Colley system, King Fiend Kettleberry attack, Richter Verzov attack, Black Mare Demer Gambit. And if you hover over all of them, it shows you the moves. Or it shows you a description of what it's about. And if you click on it, a lot of times it brings you to another page which is all about that, whatever that opening is. And if you scroll down, it tells you the history, and it tells you some more. Then it says continuations. The black response is given below are ranked in order of popularity. And so, like Knight of 6, it'll tell you a bit about Knight of 6, and it'll also tell you some of the opens that it goes into, like the Queen's Gambit Decline, King's Indian, Grunfeld, Benoni, Benko, Nimzo Indian, Queen's Indian, Budapest Gambit, Old Indian Defense, Trumpowski Attack. And you can click on them and go to that page. So there's a lot of information. And so, let me see. And this information's free. There's also, if you go to 365chess.com, if you go to resources, you click on openings, it'll bring you to this chess openings, mega index of all chess openings. And if you scroll down, first it gives you all the moves, all the openings, the main openings that start with 1e4, which are all here, which we covered in the last video. And then it gives you the chess openings with 1d4. And so and what you can do is you can click on each one, and there's a whole opening tutorial about that opening, and it's totally free. So we're going to cover these openings individually, but you can also do it yourself if you don't feel like waiting for that video to come up, because there's a lot to get to, and I'm not sure which I'm doing first. I'm probably going to start with popularity. I'm either going to start with the move that's the best as far as the computer is concerned, or I'm going to start with the moves that are most popular. I'm not sure. So I'm probably going to start with e4, e5, or d4, knight of 6. I'm not really sure. But so this is basically another introductory video. This time it's about the d4 openings, and I basically wanted to give you the chance to write all these down, so you can pause the video and write them all down if you haven't already. Then while I make these videos, you can browse Wikipedia and or 365chess.com and get a ton of information about each opening. And yeah, that should keep you busy for a while. So I'm trying to think if there's anything I want to cover in this video. Let's see. So basically, if you look at 365chess.com, it'll show you that knight of 6 and d5 are the two most popular. So you could either just study those two, and that will cover most of the games you'll encounter. Of course, sometimes it's misleading, because if you click on, it says e6 is 57,000 games, but if you click on it, I believe it transposes to another opening. c4, if you play d5, now there's over 100,000 games, because you transposed into another opening through a different series of moves. Normally you play d4, d5, c4, e6 to get to this position, but instead we played d4, e6, c4, d5. But the point is, initially, it said E6 only had 57,000 games, but really there's more than 100,000. So you can't really go by this number all the time. For the rest of these, I'm not sure which ones transpose into other openings, but I know E6 does. I'm surprised how fast these videos are going. Certain ones I think are going to take a long time. I think gathering the information takes a while, but actually making the video actually doesn't take that long. And I'm starting to figure that out. That there's a lot of work, and I'm expecting the video to be like an hour long, but it's just not. So there's Wikipedia. There's 365chess.com. There's chess.com. So if you're going to start learning an opening that's not well covered, basically probably any move. Okay, so let's see. Let's see. Okay, G6, C5, F5. That's all well known. Let's see, B6. So B6 is not as well known. The only 2,000 games have been played. Let's see, if you click on B6, there's not that many openings. There's not that many opening moves. Basically, you're going to have to put each one into the analysis page. So what you can do is go to chess.com analysis and literally put in the moves, and then it'll tell you it'll say what the analysis says. It'll give you a rating like 0.56 or 0.81, and then you can tell if the moves are good or not. If it goes lower, that means you're going towards a draw. If you're going higher, then it's more towards white's advantage. But if you do this with an opening that's not well known, what I'm going to do, and you should do as well, is you can use the moves that are here and start with those because they're still the most popular, and there might be good reasons why they're played. There might be good tactical reasons, most likely. And it does give you if you don't want to do that, it does give you an engine evaluation of its own on the side here, 0.63 after a depth of 40. But I still like playing every move, so I know what the rating is for what the engine evaluation is for all the moves. That way I know all my options. And if there are ones that are really bad, I can just totally ignore those ones. But that's the way I like to do it. I like to be very thorough. So I guess that's it for today. Let's see. Next video. I'm probably going to start covering a little more in depth, probably the King's Pawn opening, and I'll probably cover 1e4, e5, and start covering what that opening is all about. And then I'll probably move on to the French defense, the Sicilian, maybe the Nimzowitsch defense. I know there's a lot of theory on the King's Pawn, French, and Sicilian. I don't think there's that much on the Nimzowitsch defense, so that one's going to be a bit tougher. The ones where there's not much information, I'm going to have to create it by myself, so that's going to take a lot longer to come up with. But that's part of the fun, I guess. So I'm doing the fishing, but I'm also trying to teach you how to fish, so you can do it yourself. That way you don't have to wait for me to come up with the video. So yeah, I give you a lot of information. You have enough to keep you busy for a while, and that'll give me time to start making other videos. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and just watch more videos, and that really helps my channel thrive, and it gives me the ability to make more videos. So I thank you for everything, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.